Welcome to Her Remarkable History. Remember, to support our channel, please subscribe. What did Elizabeth I actually look like? When looking at portraits of kings and queens of the past, it's important to take what you may be looking at with a pinch of salt. Today we have images of the Queen, and almost everyone in the world would know what the Queen looks like. However, during the Tudor period, this was not the case. The everyday person would not be able to see what the Queen looked like, and they would not be able to recognise her. It wasn't common for Tudor peasants to know what the Queen looked like. They knew who she was, but never saw her, or probably never would see her. So to spread the word and image of the Queen, portraits were painted. But how realistic were these? One interesting portrait of a former king is that of Richard III. It shows him behind a red background, and he looks rather sinister. However, this painting was completed during the Tudor period, and shows the former king looking much more sinister, with a raised shoulder and slightly crooked hands, and he's holding these as if he is scheming. This was painted to slander the former regime, with Richard being an enemy of Henry Tudor, the man who ushered in the famous dynasty that shares his name. The point with this is that paintings were incredibly important propaganda pieces also. But what did one of England's greatest queens actually look like? Remember, to support our channel, please make sure to subscribe. There are many portraits that exist of Queen Elizabeth I, the youngest daughter of King Henry VIII. When she came onto the throne, England had been returned briefly to being a Catholic nation, and when Elizabeth came onto the throne, there was great hope for her. Many of her incredibly detailed and grand portraits show Elizabeth looking incredibly powerful and dominating, and many show her links to religion, warfare and control over the nation. You would not want to show a queen as weak, and what we know about Elizabeth is that she had an overall control as to what paintings of her actually looked like. So she would not let a bad painting of her enter circulation or be displayed publicly, and she would order painters to make tweaks and adjustments to their work to ensure she looked better. Because of her vanity, it's likely we will never know what Elizabeth I actually looked like, as true-to-life pictures were not really painted. One thing to consider with Elizabeth is that in 1562 she contracted a particularly nasty bout of smallpox which left her with a scarred face. Because of this, she began to wear very thick white makeup made from lead to cover the scars. We know now that this white makeup was most probably poison. As she entered the final years of her life, she did lose her famous ginger hair, and also many of her teeth. In fact, the royal palaces and in some rooms, she was so disgusted by her appearance that she did not have any mirrors, and because of this, we have a number of portraits that were produced and were not true to life. Many of Elizabeth's paintings that were painted in her final years show her much younger than her years, and show a youthful and vibrant queen, when this was not the case. The most reliable source of information we have as to what Queen Elizabeth I looked like is from the quotes of those within the court, and those who physically saw her with their own eyes. Robert Cecil, the Secretary of State for Elizabeth, once said that many painters have done portraits of the Queen, but none have sufficiently shown her looks and charms. Therefore, Her Majesty commands all manners of person to stop doing her portraits of her until a clever painter has finished one, which all other painters can copy. Her Majesty, in the meantime, forbids the showing of any portraits that are ugly until they are improved. With this, Elizabeth is saying how she would like one painting done of her showing a youthful and vibrant queen, and after this other painters can base their portraits off of her. Other quotes offer to us what she looked like. When the Queen was 22, a courtier stated on her appearance that her figure and face are very handsome. She has such an air of dignified majesty that no one could ever doubt she is a queen. With this, they saw her as being rather graceful and looking beautiful. But 2 years later, another courtier said, although her face is comely rather than handsome, she is tall and well-formed, with good skin, although swarthy. She has fine eyes and above all a beautiful hand which she makes display. This quote is slightly bizarre, as it quotes its talk about her hands rather than her actual appearance and her more striking features. By the time she was 32, it was said of Elizabeth that her hair was more reddish than yellow and curled naturally in appearance, showing that the Queen's natural red hair was still there by the time she was 32. She did notably wear a red wig in her later years too. The final quotes about Elizabeth relate to her at her final stages of her life, when she was in her mid-60s. She died at the age of 69, which was very good for someone in the Tudor period, with most people dying a lot younger. Elizabeth did have access to the best physicians across Tudor society, but she could not escape the ageing process. At the age of 64, a kind courtier stated, "When anyone speaks of her beauty, she says she was never beautiful. Nevertheless, she speaks of her beauty as often as she can. No doubt with this it is Elizabeth comparing herself to another woman at court, and it shows us that she does suffer with slight lack of self-esteem, saying she has never been beautiful. However, others speak highly of her looks, especially at a young age. When she was 65, it was noted by a courtier that her face is oblong, fair but wrinkled. Her eyes are small, yet black and pleasant. Her nose is a little hooked, her teeth black. She wore false hair, and that red." This in particular shows us that Elizabeth lost her teeth most probably through the sugar that was exported at great lengths following the explorations of Elizabethan explorers. Also stating someone had a hooked nose is far from a compliment too nowadays. Neither is describing someone as having small eyes that are black. It's clear, as the decades have passed, she has also lost her hair too. These last two quotes are very contrasting in their remarks about the Queen. It's interesting to consider what people who were close to the Queen said about her famous looks. We have to take them with a pinch of salt, purely as they would never have offended the Queen willingly for fear of losing their status at court, their salary, power, and possibly even their lives. It's clear to us, as is natural, Elizabeth aged, and by end of her life she was maintaining her looks using wigs, heavy makeup and so on. No one may ever know what Queen Elizabeth I looked like, unlike today's royals, but all we have are descriptions and accounts of her looks, and portraits which could have been embellished and created to show her in a positive light. What cannot be disputed, however, is the fantastic monarch she really was, attempting to solve problems with religion in England, and seeing off the threat from the Spanish Armada. The true answer to the question, what did Elizabeth I really look like today, still remains a mystery. Thank you for watching, and to support, please subscribe to Her Remarkable History. Thank you.